The morning I placed those American flags along my walkway, I'd never imagined they'd lead to a federal investigation. But here in Riverside Estates, just outside Denver, I learned that some people think patriotism lowers property values. It was Memorial Day, 2023. About 7 a.m., I was carefully positioning the sixth flag when I heard the Mercedes purr to a stop. White, naturally. Everything about Miranda Ashford was carefully curated to scream luxury. "Excuse me." Her voice cut through the morning quiet like a dulled knife. "Those need to come down immediately." I straightened up, my bad knee protesting, a souvenir from my last deployment. "Good morning to you too, Miranda." She stood there in her tennis whites, though I'd bet my pension she hadn't touched a racket in years. Her highlighted hair was frozen in place despite the morning breeze. "Don't be cute. Those tacky flags are a violation. This isn't a military base, Mr. Thompson." Major Thompson, actually. Retired. I kept my voice level, a skill honed through 15 years of military courts. And last I checked, displaying the American flag was still legal in Colorado. Her laugh was like ice cracking. Legal doesn't mean appropriate. We have standards here. This is a luxury community, not base housing. Frankly, she paused, looking me up and down like I was something she'd scrape off her shoe. Veterans like you don't really belong here anyway. You'd be happier somewhere more suited to your means. Where are you watching from right now? Drop a comment. I bet some of you have dealt with your own Miranda Ashfords. They're everywhere, aren't they? I felt my jaw tighten, but I'd faced down harder cases than suburban HOA presidents. "I'll keep that in mind, ma'am." She smiled, the kind that never reaches the eyes. "See that you do. I'll expect those down by noon." As her Mercedes glided away, I looked at my house, our dream home. Sarah and I had saved for 20 years, used my VA loan, and moved here for the schools. Emma was finally doing better after the stress of my deployments. This was supposed to be our peaceful chapter. I pulled out my phone and started recording. 15 years as a JAG officer taught me one thing: documentation wins cases. And something told me this was just the opening argument. By that afternoon, I'd done my homework on Miranda Ashford. In the military, we call it knowing your enemy. In law, it's due diligence. Either way, what I found painted a clear picture. Miranda had been HOA president for 8 years. Real estate broker with Platinum Realty. Specialized in luxury relocations. Her husband Richard ran Ashford Property Management, which conveniently held the HOA's management contract. Their company handled our $2.3 million annual budget. That's a lot of money for 312 homes. The violation notice arrived at 11:47 a.m. Derek, the security guard, hand-delivered it with a smirk. "Flag display violation," it read. "$150 fine per day until corrected. Unauthorized installations affect community aesthetics." I sat at my kitchen table, Sarah reading over my shoulder. "She can't be serious," she muttered, still in her scrubs from the night shift. "Oh, she's serious." I pulled up my laptop. "But she's also wrong. The Freedom to Display the American Flag Act of 2005 was crystal clear. HOAs couldn't prohibit flag display. I drafted a polite response, citing the federal law, and emailed it to the board. Miranda's response came within hours. Not about the flags. She'd apparently moved on. Grass height violation, Section 4.3.2. Grass exceeds 2.5 inches, $200 fine. I went outside with a ruler. 2 3/4 inches in one spot by the sprinkler head, the rest was perfect. 2 days later, unauthorized vehicle, commercial vehicles prohibited, $300 fine. My F-150, the same truck half the neighborhood drove. But mine had a small Marine Corps sticker on the back window. Marcus, look at this. Sarah had been comparing notes with neighbors on Facebook. The Washingtons got fined for excessive gatherings. They had a birthday party for their grandson, 12 people. Robert Washington lived 3 houses down. Retired Command Sergeant Major Army. Nicest guy you'd ever meet. He'd mentioned some HOA nonsense when we'd moved in, but I hadn't paid attention. The board consisted of Miranda as president, Carol Hensley as treasurer, and Jim Martinez as secretary. I'd met them at the welcome meeting. Carol had seemed nervous, constantly glancing at Miranda before speaking. Jim just stared at his notepad. She's targeting veterans, Sarah said quietly. Look at the pattern. I pulled up the neighborhood directory, cross-referenced it with the violation notices Sarah found online. 7 veterans in the past year. Dozens of violations. The non-veteran residents? Maybe 1 or 2 minor issues. That's discrimination, I said. Federal housing law, protected class status. Can you prove it in court? Sarah asked. I thought about all the cases I'd tried, all the regulations I'd studied. Not yet, but I'm about to become very familiar with every page of our HOA bylaws. That night, Emma asked why there were no flags out anymore. I'd taken them down while I researched. Just temporary, sweetheart. They'll be back. She nodded, but I caught the look. The one that said she was worried about more conflict, more upheaval. We'd moved here for stability. I wasn't about to let Miranda Ashford take that away. The knock came on a Saturday morning, 2 weeks after the flag incident. Robert Washington stood on my porch, folder in hand. Major Thompson, I think we need to talk. Over coffee, Robert laid out 2 years of documentation. Violations for excessive barbecue smoke during a Memorial Day cookout, unauthorized gathering for his family reunion, 15 relatives, noise complaint for his grandson playing basketball at 3 p.m. She told me I was bringing down the neighborhood standards, Robert said, his voice steady but eyes hard. 40 years of service, and suddenly I'm not good enough for Riverside Estates? How much in fines? $3,200 so far. I've paid to avoid liens, but I've fought every one. He opened the folder. Here's the interesting part. Look at the dates. Each violation came right before a board meeting or community vote. Strategic timing. You're not the only one who noticed, I said. Sarah found similar patterns online. There's more of us. Most just leave. His jaw tightened. Stevens, Murphy, Chen, all veterans, all gone within a year of moving in. That evening, while walking Emma's emotional support dog, I met Jennifer Park. She lived 2 doors down, worked at the VA hospital. She glanced around nervously before speaking. "I saw what happened with your flags. It's wrong." Her voice barely above a whisper.
"But I can't. I'm a single mom. I can't afford the fines." "Have you had issues?" "No, but that's because I keep my head down. I've seen what happens to people who don't." She paused. "Carol Hensley, the treasurer, she's my patient's wife. She's not happy about what's happening, but Miranda has something on everyone. The security situation was its own problem. Derek Manning, the gate guard, was an off-duty Denver cop supplementing his income. He had a habit of making veterans wait for additional verification, even though our vehicles were all registered. "Random security checks," he'd say, while waving through Miranda's guests without stopping. Robert tested it one day. Had his civilian neighbor drive his car, waved right through. Robert drove the same car an hour later, 20-minute wait for verification. Everything changed on July 4th. I'd organized a small veteran appreciation gathering. Nothing fancy, burgers, hot dogs, some music.
Completely within HOA guidelines for resident gatherings under 50 people. We had about 30 neighbors on my lawn when Miranda arrived, cease and desist letter in hand. "This is an unauthorized commercial event," she announced loudly. "You're in violation of multiple ordinances. I'm issuing a $5,000 fine." "Commercial?" Sarah stepped forward. "We're not charging anything. It's a neighborhood barbecue." Miranda's smile was poison. "With a clear political agenda. We don't allow that here." She turned to address everyone. "Maybe you people were heroes over there, but here you're just homeowners who need to follow rules like everyone else." The silence was deafening. Even the kids stopped playing. Jennifer was recording on her phone. I saw Carol in her car across the street, watching but not getting out. Jim stood behind Miranda, studying his shoes. "We'll see about that," Robert said quietly. Miranda's eyes narrowed. "Yes, we will." That night, I set up my home office like a combat operations center. 15 years of JAG work taught me that evidence wins wars, not emotions. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked, finding me surrounded by printouts at 2 a.m. "Building a case." I showed her my recording app. Colorado's a one-party consent state. Every interaction from now on gets documented. I started with the corporate structure. Ashford Property Management wasn't just one company, it was a web of LLCs. Riverside Management LLC, Ashford Holdings, Premium Property Solutions, each with slightly different addresses, all leading back to Richard and Miranda. The HOA's tax filings were public record. They claimed 501c4 nonprofit status. I filed a FOA request for complete financial records. What came back 3 weeks later was interesting. Maintenance fees collected, $2.3 million annually. Actual maintenance performed, maybe $800,000 worth. The rest went to management fees and administrative costs. "That's a hell of an administrative cost," Robert said when I showed him. He'd been busy too. His file had grown to a banker's box. 47 veterans have moved out in 5 years, he said. I tracked down 15 of them. Same pattern, harassment, fines. Eventually, they just gave up. And their houses? Bought by Pinnacle Investment Group, usually within days of listing. Below market price, the sellers just want it out. Then Pinnacle flips them 3 months later for 20 to 30% profit. I pulled up Pinnacle's corporate registration. The registered agent was a law firm, but buried in the paperwork was a familiar name, Richard Ashford, listed as a consulting partner. Jesus, Sarah breathed. They're driving out veterans to make money on the houses? The Colorado Civil Rights Division took my complaint seriously. Housing discrimination based on military status violated both state and federal law. I documented every incident, every pattern, every connection.
Then Jennifer slipped me an envelope at the mailbox. "I can't be involved," she whispered, "but Carol left these in my car after her appointment. Board meeting minutes from the past year. Not the sanitized versions posted online, the real ones. Miranda's comments were damning. Need to maintain certain community standards. Military families often struggle with HOA expectations. Consider additional screening measures for VA loan applicants. And the smoking gun from 3 months ago. R.W. Washington problem needs resolution before property values affected." I photographed everything, backed it up to 3 different cloud services. In combat, we called it shoot, move, communicate. In law, it was document, preserve, disseminate. My first formal legal action was a demand letter to the board, citing the Civil Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, and requesting immediate cessation of discriminatory practices. I CC'd the Colorado Attorney General's office and HUD. Miranda's response came through the HOA's lawyer. "Your client's baseless accusations are defamatory. Continued harassment will result in legal action." I smiled. In JAG, we had a saying, "When they threaten to sue, you're over the target." "What's next?" Sarah asked. "Now we wait, and we keep documenting, because Meralda's about to make a mistake. They always do when they think they're untouchable." August 15th, 3:47 p.m. I'll never forget that time. Emma had texted that she was heading home from summer school. By 4:30, she still wasn't home. My phone rang. Emma, crying. "Dad, they won't let me in. I'm at the gate and—" "Slow down, sweetheart. What's happening?" "Derek says my car isn't authorized, but we registered it 3 times. He won't let me through, and it's so hot, and—" Her breathing was getting rapid. The panic attacks had started during my last deployment. "I'm coming. Stay in the car, air conditioning on." I drove the 3 minutes to our gate in about 90 seconds. Emma's Honda was pulled to the side. Derek leaning against his booth, scrolling his phone. Emma was in full panic mode, hyperventilating, tears streaming. The temperature gauge showed 95 degrees. What the hell is this? I kept my voice controlled, but my hands were shaking. Derek didn't look up. "Vehicle's not on the authorized list." "That's bullshit, and you know it. We've registered it 3 times. You waved her through yesterday." He shrugged. "System says unauthorized. Can't help you." "She's having a medical emergency. Open the gate." "Not my problem. Maybe you should have thought about proper authorization before—" I pulled out my phone, hit 911. I need paramedics at Riverside Estates front gate. 17-year-old female, panic attack, possible heat exhaustion. Derek's eyes widened. Hey, no need for, I continued, and police, security guard refusing to allow medical situation to be addressed. The real Denver PD arrived in 6 minutes. The paramedics were right behind. Emma's vitals were elevated but stable. The officers were confused. So, you're security here? Officer Martinez asked Derek, and you kept a resident's child locked out in extreme heat because... HOA protocols, Derek muttered. I was following. Was the vehicle registered? The officer asked me. I showed him 3 receipt confirmations from the HOA's own system. I see, Martinez turned back to Derek. You got some explaining to do. Jennifer had been driving by and caught everything on her dash cam. By evening, she'd posted it to the neighborhood Facebook group. Just the facts, no commentary needed. The comments exploded. This is insane! A child could have been seriously hurt. What if she'd had a real medical emergency? My kids drive too. This isn't about rules, it's about safety. For the first time, non-veteran families were angry. This wasn't about military service anymore. This was about their children. Carol Hensley commented, "As treasurer, I'm deeply concerned. This needs immediate board attention." Within 2 hours, 40% of homeowners had signed a petition for an emergency meeting. Per bylaws, that was enough to force one within 72 hours. Miranda tried damage control on the group page. This was an unfortunate misunderstanding. Security protocols are for everyone's safety. Robert replied, "My grandson was held for 45 minutes last month. No misunderstanding there." Sarah held Emma as she took her anxiety medication that night. "I don't want to live here anymore," Emma whispered. "I know, baby," Sarah said, looking at me. "But sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, or they never stop." I sat on Emma's bed. "You did everything right. Derek did everything wrong, and now everyone knows it." The emergency meeting was called for Friday night. Miranda couldn't block it. The bylaws were clear. The tide was turning. Carol Hensley appeared at my door Thursday evening, the night before the emergency meeting. She kept glancing over her shoulder like Miranda might materialize from the shadows. "I can't do this anymore," she said, clutching a leather portfolio. "What happened to your daughter? That was the last straw." We sat in my home office, Sarah bringing coffee. Carol's hands shook as she opened the portfolio. "I'm the treasurer, but Miranda keeps 2 sets of books. These are the real ones." She spread out spreadsheets. "I've been documenting discrepancies for 2 years, too scared to do anything." The numbers were staggering. Over 3 years, roughly $400,000 was missing. Maintenance payments to Ashford Property Management for work never performed, $180,000. Emergency repairs that were just regular maintenance, $75,000. Administrative fees that went straight to Miranda's personal accounts, $145,000. "And the veteran fines?" I asked. Carol pulled out another sheet.
She calls it the Community Standards Fund. Every fine from a veteran goes into a separate account. She's collected $47,000 in 3 years. What does she use it for? Caribbean vacations, her Mercedes lease. Last month, $5,000 at a casino in Black Hawk. Sarah whistleblow. That's embezzlement. Federal crime if she used mail or wire transfers. I called Tom Polson, a forensic accountant I'd worked with in the JAG Corps. Now in private practice, he agreed to review everything pro bono. For a fellow veteran getting screwed? Absolutely. His preliminary analysis was damning. Wire fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy to defraud. The HOA was supposed to be non-profit, but Miranda had turned it into her personal ATM.
The pattern became clear. Harass veteran families with escalating fines. Create hostile environment until they sell below market. Pinnacle Investment Group swoops in. Quick flip for 20 to 30% profit. Miranda gets $10,000 to $15,000 kickback per property. It's like a twisted RICO case, Tom said. Racketeering through HOA harassment. Robert had been tracking the property sales. Look at this. Every veteran who sold, their house went to Pinnacle within 48 hours. Cash offers, quick closes. Then 3 months later, back on market for way more. How many properties? 32 in 5 years. Conservative estimate? They've made $2 million in profits. Miranda's cut would be around $400,000. I compiled everything into a federal complaint. Wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy to violate civil rights, tax evasion. The FBI's white-collar crime division would be very interested. "Will you testify?" I asked Carol. She took a deep breath. "I'm tired of being afraid." "Yes. They'll come after you."
Let them. I've got copies of everything in a safety deposit box. My lawyer has instructions if anything happens to me. That night, I updated my presentation for the emergency meeting. This wasn't just about discrimination anymore. This was about criminal conspiracy. "You think people will believe it?" Sarah asked. "With Carol backing it up? With these documents?" I smiled grimly. Miranda's about to learn what happens when you target people trained to build airtight cases. Friday, August 18th, 7 p.m. The community center was packed, over 200 homeowners. Miranda sat at the board table, perfect composure masking what I knew was panic. She'd tried every procedural trick to cancel this meeting. "This is highly irregular," she began. "Emergency meetings should follow proper channels." 40% of homeowners signed the petition, Robert interrupted from the front row. "That is the proper channel. Page 47 of the bylaws you wrote." I'd prepared meticulously. Every document copied, every slide reviewed by Tom. The FBI had confirmed they were investigating, but couldn't comment. Perfect. I didn't need them to. Yet. "Before we begin," I announced, standing, "per Colorado law, I'm notifying everyone that I'm recording this meeting for accuracy." Miranda's eye twitched. "That's not necessary." Page 23 of the bylaws. Any homeowner may record open meetings. I smiled. "Shall we start with the financial report you've been refusing to provide?" Jennifer had set up a camera in the back. Several neighbors had phones out. Miranda was trapped by her own rules. "The agenda is security protocols," Miranda said tightly, "not finances." Carol stood up. "As treasurer, I move to amend the agenda to include financial review. The security incident is directly related to budget allocation." "Seconded," called out 5 voices simultaneously. The vote was overwhelming. Miranda had to allow it. I started simple. "Last year, we collected $2.3 million in HOA fees.
Can you show us where it went?" Miranda pulled up her prepared slides. Sanitized, fake numbers. "Interesting," I said, "because the actual bank statements show different amounts. You don't have access to—" Carol provided them. As treasurer, that's her right. I clicked to my first slide. 2 columns, reported versus actual. Gasps rippled through the room. The discrepancies were obvious even to non-accountants. "This is defamation," Miranda stood. "I'll sue every—" "Let's talk about the Community Standards Fund," I continued calmly. Click. Next slide. Her casino receipts. "Where did you get those?" Her voice cracked. "Your bank. Subpoenaed by the FBI last week." That was a calculated lie. The FBI doesn't move that fast. But she didn't know that. "I want our lawyer," she screamed at Jim, who looked like he wanted to disappear. "Let's discuss Pinnacle Investment Group." Click. The connection chart. Richard's name highlighted. Every veteran who left sold to Pinnacle. Every property flipped for massive profit. And you received, click, deposit records, $10,000 to $15,000 per sale. The room erupted. Non-veteran homeowners were shouting. They'd been paying for Miranda's scheme. "You people think your service entitles you to special treatment?" Miranda screamed, completely losing control. "I made this community valuable. You were playing soldier while I built something special. Those people didn't belong here anyway." Perfect. I glanced at Jennifer's camera, still rolling. "Actually," I said quietly, the room falling silent, "my service entitles me to exactly what everyone gets. Equal treatment under the law. And speaking of law," I clicked to the final slide. "FBI case number 2023-DEN-4783. Wire fraud, tax evasion, civil rights violations. They'll be very interested in that confession you just made." The room was dead silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the whole room, except the board table, was booing and storming. Miranda grabbed her purse and stormed toward the exit. She opened the door to find 2 FBI agents standing there. They'd been listening from the lobby. "Miranda Ashford, we need to talk." The FBI agents were polite but firm. "Mrs. Ashford, we'd like you to come with us for questioning." "I'm not saying anything without my lawyer." Miranda's voice hit a pitch that could shatter glass. "This is harassment. I'll sue everyone in this room." "Ma'am, you're not under arrest. Yet." Agent Sarah Chen kept her voice level. "But we have questions about financial irregularities." Miranda spun to face the room.
You ungrateful bastards! I increased your property values. I kept the riffraff out, and this is how you repay me? The riffraff? Robert stood slowly. You mean veterans? You know exactly what I mean. She was completely unhinged now. Your barbecues, your flags, your trucks. This is a luxury community, not a military base. I made this place valuable while you were playing soldier in your pointless wars. Agent Shen pulled out her phone, started recording. Even she looked shocked. Ma'am, you're making this worse. Shut up! Miranda screamed at her. Do you know who I am? I own this place. Every increased property value, every premium home sale, that was me, not these welfare queens with their VA loans. Derek, the security guard, chose that moment to arrive. Mrs. Ashford, should I arrest them? She pointed at me. All of them, trespassing. Agent Shen's partner, Agent Williams, stepped forward. Actually, Derek Manning, we need to speak with you too, about the false imprisonment of a minor. Derek went pale. I was just following orders. Shut your mouth, Miranda shrieked. You spineless... Ma'am, stop talking. Agent Shen wasn't asking anymore. Miranda Ashford, you're under arrest for wire fraud. You have the right to remain silent. I'll destroy you all! Miranda kept screaming as they cuffed her. Richard, call Richardson. Get me out of this. Jim, the secretary, finally found his voice. For the record, I had no knowledge of any financial irregularities. I have documentation showing my concerns. You coward! Miranda tried to lunge at him, but the agents held her. You signed everything I told you to. Actually, Carol said quietly, I have emails where you threatened to destroy his landscaping business if he didn't comply. The agents exchanged glances. This was better than they'd hoped. As they led Miranda out, still screaming about lawsuits and connections, the room remained frozen. Then someone started slow clapping again. This time it spread faster. Motion to remove Miranda Ashford as president effective immediately. Seconded, came from dozens of voices. The vote was unanimous, even Jim raising his hand. Motion to remove the entire board and hold new elections, Robert added. Also unanimous.
Derek tried to slip out during the chaos, but Agent Williams stopped him. Not so fast. We have questions about your timesheet fraud. Seems you've been billing the HOA while on duty with Denver PD. Miranda said it was approved. Get it in writing? Williams asked. Derek's silence was answer enough. Within an hour, we'd elected a temporary board, Robert as president, Jennifer as secretary, and a retired CPA named George as treasurer. Their first act was to hire an independent auditor. This isn't over, Carol warned quietly. Richard's still out there, and he's got connections. She was right. But for tonight, we'd won a major battle. The federal courthouse in downtown Denver was packed for Miranda's sentencing. 6 months of investigation had uncovered even more than we'd found. The FBI discovered offshore accounts, money laundering through property sales, and a decade-long pattern of discrimination. Judge Patricia Williams read the charges like a grocery list.
Wire fraud, conspiracy to violate civil rights, tax evasion, money laundering. Mrs. Ashford, you turned a homeowners association into a criminal enterprise. Miranda, in orange jumpsuit instead of tennis whites, looked smaller somehow. Her lawyer had tried for a plea deal, but she'd refused, convinced her connections would save her. They didn't. 7 years federal prison, 3 years supervised release, restitution of $1.2 million to the Riverside Estates HOA. Richard got 5 years for cooperating with investigators. He'd flipped immediately, providing records going back 10 years. Turns out, Miranda had been pulling similar schemes in 2 previous communities. Derek, 18 months for false imprisonment and timesheet fraud. Lost his law enforcement certification permanently. The Denver PD conducted their own investigation. He'd been double billing for years. The HOA transformation was remarkable.
Under Robert's leadership, we recovered $1 million from frozen accounts, reduced fees by 30% after cutting corrupt contracts, implemented transparent monthly financial reports, created a veteran support committee, established clear, non-discriminatory rules. Property values up 15% in 1 year. Turns out diversity and transparency are good for home prices. Emma started therapy with a specialist in anxiety disorders. The therapist said the community support, neighbors checking on her, the public vindication helped her healing process. She's planning to study law now, like Dad, but corporate law, better hours. Sarah launched a veteran spouse support group that meets monthly. 23 families regularly attend, sharing resources and experiences. Miranda had isolated us. Sarah brought us together. I started consulting for other HOAs dealing with discrimination issues. Turns out Miranda types are everywhere, but so are people willing to fight back. They just need the tools.
Carol became our permanent treasurer. She implemented financial controls that would make a Fortune 500 company proud. Every cent accounted for, every expense transparent. I enabled her for too long, she told me. Never again. The best part? Young veteran families started moving in. Word spread through military networks. Riverside Estates was safe for veterans. We went from 15 veteran families to 40 in 18 months. That $650,000 house we'd bought, now valued at $747,000. Turns out Miranda was wrong. Veterans don't lower property values. Criminals do. Memorial Day 2024. 1 year after Miranda told me my flags were tacky. This time, American flags lined our entire street. Dozens of homes, veterans and civilians alike, displaying them proudly. Robert and I stood in my driveway reviewing the new HOA guidelines we drafted. Clear, fair, and absolutely no room for discrimination. You know what the best part is, Robert said, gesturing at the flags. Nobody had to be told to put them up. They wanted to. My phone buzzed. An email from a young Army captain stationed at Fort Carson. Major Thompson, my realtor warned me about HOAs, but then showed me your story. My family's closing on a house in Riverside next month. Thanks for making it safe for us to move there. I forwarded it to Sarah, who was inside preparing for the neighborhood Memorial Day barbecue, now an official HOA-sponsored event. Another one? She called out, smiling. That's for this month. Emma walked out with a tray of lemonade, steady and confident. The panic attacks were mostly controlled now. "Dad, Mrs. Chen wants to know if you'll speak at her civics class about civil rights law." "Tell her yes," I said, watching her walk to our neighbor's house. The same girl who'd been terrorized at our gate now moved freely, safely, proudly through her community. Sometimes fighting isn't about the victory itself. It's about making sure the next person doesn't face the same battle. Every veteran who moves here now will never know what we went through, and that's the point. To my fellow veterans reading this, document everything. Know your rights. The Fair Housing Act, the Service Members Civil Relief Act, these aren't just words on paper. They're weapons against discrimination. And remember, your service does matter. Your sacrifice has value. Don't let anyone, not an HOA president, not a security guard, not anyone, tell you that you don't belong. You've earned your place. Sometimes you just have to fight one more battle to claim it. Drop a comment with your city. Let's build a network. If you're facing HOA harassment, you're not alone. Share this with any veteran who needs to see it. What would you have done in my situation? Because somewhere out there, another Miranda is harassing another veteran family. But now, they'll know. We fight back. We support each other. And we win. Semper Fi.